In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, and those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. In all the other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. So, if you're suing an ambassador, which, very few people have cause to do, but what have you, that's going directly to the Supreme Court. But, or if you're suing your state, which is a lot more common. But in most cases, you're going to a district court or your local court. Not a circuit, not a district, just, but the Supreme Court hears appeals. And they've traditionally taken both as to law and fact to mean that they are able to overturn laws. Is that what was originally intended by that phrase? I frankly don't care. What's important to me is that we need a system that does that, and the Supreme Court does the job.
Yeah. So, if every case went against you all the way up, nope, but the Supreme Court can, reverse that. No, yeah, they're right all along. It's actually this way.
Yeah. The Supreme Court, and if you look at the history of a lot of these cases, sometimes all of the courts went one way, and sometimes it went back and forth. But the Supreme Court is the ultimate deciding force. And a lot of the time, if they agree with the lesser courts, they just won't hear the case. Sometimes they will hear it even if they're pretty sure they agree, because they want to change, they want to kick out a law, and the only way that's going to happen is if the Supreme Court hears it.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of happening a bit with the new president. And if they overturn Roe v. Wade, I was afraid they might overturn the gay marriage from
Obergefell v. Hodges. That is on the list of. So when they overturned Roe v. Wade, Clarence Thomas had a list of laws that he felt were similarly unjustly decided by the quote-unquote non-existent right to privacy. And we will get to why there is a right to privacy considered to be in the Constitution. We'll get there. Mm-hmm. But Obergefell v. Hodges was one of the ones that Clarence Thomas wanted overturned. And what I'm curious about is what he thinks about Loving v. Virginia, which was similarly a right to privacy law, because Loving v. Virginia, which is another one that everyone should know, especially because one of the people involved is still alive. Loving v. Virginia is living memory for a lot of people.
Oh, is that the one with interracial?
That is the one that legalized interracial marriages in the United States. So Clarence Thomas is married to a white woman. And let's look up where Clarence Thomas lives. He was born in Georgia, which I'm quite sure that was illegal in Georgia. I'm not sure, but I think they live in Virginia.
So if they do go back to the state, if they did with the abortion, go back to the states, who knows if that state will make it legal.
Yeah, he lives in McLean, Virginia. So if they abolish the supposed, the implied right to privacy, Clarence Thomas's own marriage is illegal under pre-existing Virginia law.
Yeah.
which I don't know if they've bothered. A lot of times when the Supreme Court overturns a law, nobody bothers taking the laws off the books.
Yeah.
Because why take the time? Which is why technically, here's another one that's right to privacy. A lot of states still technically have anti-sodomy laws on the books. They are legally unenforceable now due to a Supreme Court decision. But they're still technically on the books because nobody wastes the time to overturn them. I'm sure a lot of states back east technically still have laws on the books regarding slavery that are just, they're abolished by by a constitutional amendment, but nobody bothers taking the slave codes off the books because why spend the time in Congress in your state legislature doing that? I don't know that for sure, but I wouldn't be surprised, let's say.
Yeah, I know you said your state had already legalized gay marriage before,
Yes.
way before that, but I forget if Ohio had or not.
Let's look that up. States that legalize gay marriage. Because I'm not using the freaking.
Or if we even had civil unions by that point. So,
yeah.
Ohio is more backwards than I thought it would be. But then again, we are an hour away we are right next to the Concentration Museum.
Yeah.
Growing up, I thought Ohio was a northern state, so we believe in union stuff. But there are surprisingly a lot of Confederate sympathizers up in Ohio that I was aware of until I became aware of them.
Let's see. So the first state to do any kind of statewide domestic partnership was Hawaii. But then they passed a constitutional amendment that limited marriage to, opposite sex partners. So Massachusetts was the first state to do actual marriage.
Did you see Ohio anywhere on that list?
November 2004, they approved a constitutional amendment defining marriage as the union of one man and one woman.
I think I remember that vote thing.
Schwarzenegger vetoed legislation establishing same-sex marriage in California in 2005.
So I'm just saying that if it does get overturned, if my niece got married 2 months ago to her partner, it will be like illegal.
Yeah. 2007, Schwarzenegger vetoed same-sex marriage the second time.
And I thought he was one of the more progressive Republicans.
He is. Nobody wants to give me a list except the AI, which I refuse to use.
All right. Well, hopefully they'll never overturn it. They probably will.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm concerned about my niece. Anyways.
Yeah, most states would ban same-sex marriage. Now, I do feel that most states would then rapidly pass laws allowing it. A lot of them were already set, folks.
Yeah, we did that 2 years after the Supreme Court case. We legalized abortion in Ohio against the governor's wishes. Like the court, it probably get both the governor and the House, the state house thing was purely conservative.
Yeah,
like, that and marijuana is legal now. So.
Yeah, we legalized marijuana at the same time as Colorado, which got all the attention. Technically, they were first because their polls closed earlier because they were in an earlier time zone. But Washington was that same day. So,
Also, okay.
um,
Then it says, well, except for stuff with the Congress and regulations.
Congress can change a whole bunch of things. In practice, they never have for a lot of this stuff because, well, frankly, because nobody cares that much. But in theory, they could.
Yeah, I don't know if we talk about it later, but I think it's implied later on that the Supreme Court can call the Supreme Court can declare a law constitutional, so you make an amendment to get around that.
Yeah. And I mean, arguably, there are amendments that have been passed directly in response to Supreme Court rulings. Hillary Clinton, one of her campaign promises was to work towards an amendment that would have overturned United Citizens United, and abolish corporate personhood in the United States. Because that's the only way we're going to get around that is by constitutional amendment.
Yeah. I think you remember the Simpsons? They did a parody of the Schoolhouse Rock thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they did an amendment once of the bill. It says
amendment to be, yes.
Yeah, it says, why can't you pass a law? Because that's illegal. But if I make an amendment to ban flag burning, then we can make all
we can pass all kinds of crazy laws. You need another Vietnam. Get out their ranks a little. Yes, no, I have large amounts of that bit memorized because it was pointed directly at me, really. Because it's deliberately, specifically about Gen X. Bart says the words. Yeah. Or Lisa, rather, says the words.
So you're purely in the Gen X camp?
Oh yeah. No, I was born in 1976. That's Gen X under anybody's definitions.
Yeah.
It's late Gen X, but it's Gen X.
I fall within the Zennial thing. Not quite a millennial, but at the border, right at the border of that and Gen X.
Yeah.
So I'm half millennial and half Gen X.
You're on the cusp.
I can use technology, but I'm not reliant on it.
I can still program a VCR. It's not a useful skill, but it's a skill that I have. I can change the time on a VCR.
I don't know if I can still do that. I used to be able to do that, but I haven't used a VCR in like 10 years now, give or take. I don't know if I can still remember. If I can still do that, if I have to, but I haven't need to record anything on tape for a long time.
Yeah, well, I'm the one who goes around changing the time on all the clocks when we have daylight savings time because I'm the one who knows how to do it. Because I, grew up at a time where things didn't automatically change themselves.
We grew up on a time where I had to dial with the rotary, the good old rotary phones.
Oh yes, no, I used a rotary phone. Yeah, no, I am very much Gen X.
And the cords, the phone cords. We could go. We couldn't go very far unless we had a long cord.
Yeah. And they were always tangling. So the amendment to the Constitution is directly pointed at me as a Gen Xer. Yes, I do have most of that memorized. But it's true that passing an amendment lets you pass all kinds of crazy laws.
Oh, I think the other one, we're going off topic again here, but they also had this one applies more to the Article 2 than Article 3, but they did a SNL one about executive orders.
Yeah. Well, executive orders are much more of a modern thing, I think. And Congress should be able to curtail that power somewhat, but they're not gonna. Because it's seen as a convenient way to get around Congress. And yeah.
That's the thing about the thing about the 14th Amendment. If the Supreme Court won't overturn it, then he's going to do it himself. Executive order, he said.
Yeah, which good luck with that. Andrew Jackson had a similar feeling during the Indian removal of the Trail of Tears. That was found to be unconstitutional at the time.
He's like, whatever.
I believe that went directly to the Supreme Court. I believe that was one of the ones where the Supreme Court was considered to have original jurisdiction because the Native Americans were considered to be separate countries within the United States. And like I said, I do not know enough to get into that whole history. I'm not an expert. I know I don't know much.
Yeah. All I know is I think Jackson said, "Oh, fine, let them enforce it then. I'm doing it anyways."
Yeah. Jackson's feeling was he had an army and the Supreme Court didn't. The answer to you and whose army was me and this one. Which is the problem with the Supreme Court, is they do not have a way of enforcing their orders. And if states and the federal government choose to ignore it, there's not a whole lot that can be done.
All right. States of party that has important original jurisdiction. Appeal. Either they start there or they go up to it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Both law and fact.
Yes.
Is there a difference?
Well, you could say, when you appeal, you can say, for example, and this is depressingly common, this DNA evidence proves that I wasn't there. Ergo, or that I wasn't the one who did it. Ergo, I am innocent and should be let free. And that is a decision of fact. The facts prove that your state should not have you locked up for this thing that you didn't do. Law is your Korematsu, your Oberfell, your Plessy v. Ferguson, where they are deciding if the law itself should be valid.
It's funny you mentioned that DNA thing. That reminds me of I used to watch this soap, All My Children.
Oh yes, familiar.
And there's the one case where this guy got arrested for rape. His DNA, the DNA had 70% match, so he got convicted and stuff. It turned out it was his older brother who did it.
Yeah. Well, it's fun because there have been cases of twins where, the DNA shows that one of them did the thing, but it doesn't prove which one. Obviously, that's not common, but it has happened.
Do you ever see that movie? We saw it in school a long time ago. It was where they about movie, but when the first time they used a fingerprint thing. This baby's got switched at birth. A slave kid and a protection kid got switched at birth, and the one kid they figured out who it was by the fingerprints.
Huh. That sounds wild. I have not seen that.